Alright, hello everybody, this is Antonio Wolf, and here with Hyperion, continuing A Voyage To Arcturus. We're on Chapter 10, Tide Omen. Oshek sat down carelessly on the couch of mosses and began eating the plums. You see, you had to kill him, Maskell, she said in a rather quizzical voice. He came away from the corpse and regarded her, still red and still breathing hard. It's no joking matter. You especially ought to keep quiet. Why? Because he was your husband. You think I ought to show grief when I feel none? Don't pretend, woman. Oshek smiled. From your manner, one would think you were accusing me of some crime. Maskell literally snorted at her words. What, you live with filth? You live in the arms of a morbid monstrosity, and then... Oh, now I grasp it, she said in a tone of perfect detachment. I'm glad. Well, Maskell, she proceeded after a pause, and who gave you the right to rule my conduct? Am I not mistress of my own person? He looked at her with disgust, but said nothing. There was another long interval of silence. I never loved him, said Oshek at last, looking at the ground. That makes it all the worse. What does all this mean? What do you want? Nothing from you. Absolutely nothing. Thank heaven. She gave a hard laugh. You come here with your foreign preconceptions and expect us all to bow down to them. What preconceptions? Just because Crim Typhon's sports are strange to you, you murder him, and you would like to murder me. Sports? That diabolical cruelty. Oh, you're sentimental, said Oshek contemptuously. Why do you need to make such a fuss over that man? Life is life, all the world over, and one form is as good as another. He was only to be made a tree, like a million other trees. If they can endure the life, why can't he? And this is if-done morality. Oshek began to grow angry. It's you who have peculiar ideas. You rave about the beauty of flowers and trees. You think them divine. But then it's a question of taking on this... But when it's a question of taking on this divine, fresh, pure, enchanting loveliness yourself, in your own person, it immediately becomes a cruel and wicked degradation. Here we have a strange riddle, in my opinion. Oshek, you're a beautiful, heartless, wild beast. Nothing more. If you weren't a woman... Well, curling her lip, let us hear what would happen if I weren't a woman. Maskell bit his nails. It doesn't matter. I can't touch you. Though there's certainly not the difference of a hair between you and your boy husband. For this you may think my foreign preconceptions. Farewell. He turned to go. Oshek's eyes slanted at him through their long lashes. Where are you off to, Maskell? That's a matter of no importance, for wherever I go, it must be a change for the better. You walk in whirlpools of... Sorry. Let me just read that whole thing. That's a matter of no importance, for wherever I go, it must be a change for the better. You walk in whirlpools of crime. Wait a minute. I only want to say this. Blood Sombre is just starting, and you had better stay here till the afternoon. We can quickly put that body out of sight, and as you seem to detest me so much, the place is big enough. We needn't talk or even see each other. I don't wish to breathe the same air. Singular man! She was sitting erect and motionless, like a beautiful statue. And what of your wonderful interview with Surtur, and all the undone things which you set out to do? You aren't the one I shall speak to about that, but... He eyed her meditatively. While I'm here, you can tell me this. What's the meaning of the expression on that corpse's face? Is that another crime, Maskell? All dead people look like that. Ought they not to? I once heard it called Crystalman's face. Why not? We are all daughters and sons of Crystalman. It is doubtless the family resemblance. It has also been told me that Surtur and Crystalman are one and the same. You have wise and truthful acquaintances. Then how could it have been Surtur whom I saw? Said Maskell, more to himself than to her. That apparition was something quite different. She dropped her mocking manner and, sliding imperceptibly toward him, gently pulled his arm. You see, we have to talk. Sit down beside me and ask me your questions. I'm not excessively smart, but I'll try to be of assistance. Maskell permitted himself to be dragged down with soft violence. She bent toward him as if confidentially, and contrived with her sweet, cool, feminine breath should fan his cheek. Contrived that her sweet, cool, feminine breath should fan his cheek. Aren't you here to alter the evil to the good, Maskell? Then what does it matter who sent you? What can you possibly know of good and evil? Are you only instructing the initiated? Who am I to instruct anybody? However, you're quite right. I wish to do what I can, not because I am qualified, but because I am here. Oshiek's voice dropped to a whisper. You're a giant, both in body and soul. What you want to do, you can do. Is that your honest opinion, or are you flattering me for your own ends? She sighed. Don't you see how difficult you're making the conversation? Let's talk about your work, not about ourselves. Maskell suddenly noticed a strange blue light glowing in the northern sky. It was from Alpane, but Alpane itself was behind the hills. While he was observing it, a peculiar wave of self-denial of a disquieting nature passed through him. He looked at Oshiek, and it struck him for the first time that he was being unnecessarily brutal to her. He had forgotten that she was a woman and defenseless. So, just gonna see if there's anything worth remarking so far. Again, for those who don't remember, Alpane is the star that's particularly Crystalman's star. Interesting that here has what seems to be a good effect. You know, it's calms him down from his wrath, makes him self-reflect, step out of his current situation. You know, a peculiar wave of self-denial, of a disquieting nature passed through him. So it's seemingly good in its effect, but the experience itself seems to be slightly negative. I mean, the reason he has for calming down on her, that she's a woman, I don't think it's a good reason, but I mean, it's not like she's being mean towards him anyways. Yet another case in which you can easily tell that Maskell's not quite the one who's really in control of himself so far. He hasn't been in control of himself since he met Joywind, really. Let's see. The thing about morality is an interesting one. It's a simple discussion that you see happen quite a lot online these days. It's a simple discussion that you see happening early on in philosophy. You can find this stuff happening in Socratic dialogues. You know, Maskell has his standpoint of morality, but he doesn't know why his morality is really true or any better than anybody else. So, you know, someone like Oshiek's throwing it back in his face that, you know, you come here with your foreign preconceptions and expect us all to bow down to them. Just because Crim Typhon's spores are strange to you, you murder him, and you would like to murder me. So, from obviously her standpoint, she doesn't see what's wrong with what they were doing. The reason she had Maskell kill Crim Typhon is mainly because she wanted a new husband. She was tired of him. And since Crim Typhon seems to have a stronger will than Oshak's, in a place where will dominates, like Ifton, it's dangerous and probably not entirely within your own power, really. And this will become clear once the story moves on. Just how much everybody's affected by just the power of will, and where the meaning of somebody's will overtaking you is quite literal. They overtake you. It's not even against their will over yours, such that you are having a struggle of willing. For the most part, it seems that most of the beings in Ifton have such a differential strength of will that there really isn't much of a struggle, and the moment the struggle is won, the person who loses doesn't even really realize it, because their will truly is overtaken. It is possessed thoroughly and almost completely. So they can't even tell that their will has been overtaken. They just feel it as their own, but it's somebody else, bringing it onto them. The point about the trees is a very good one. It's you who have peculiar ideas. You rave about the beauty of flowers and trees. You think them divine. But when it's a question of taking on this divine, fresh, pure, enchanting loveliness yourself in your own person, it immediately becomes a cruel and wicked degradation. Here we have a strange riddle, in my opinion. And notice Maskell doesn't answer this accusation, because I think as far as it goes, he can't. He himself doesn't understand why. Because, just think about it. I think it's very straightforward. She says, well, you come say from the moment that he had with Joywind, and her thing is well, all life is precious. Well, what was Crim Typhon doing? He wasn't killing a guy. He was probably, we don't quite know, probably inflicting pain, though. Probably it's not a painless procedure. But when you think about it, if all life is equal, like it was for Joywind, what's bad about taking one life and transforming it into another? Let's see. Maskell accuses them. He says, "Are you walking whirlpools of crime?" And now, the way she responds, at first she's indignant. Hottie. But, she likes Maskell. She wants him as her new husband. So she's not going to give up that easily. So her change of character, or a tune, not change of character, but change of tune, is pretty understandable given her aims. She doesn't want him to make him leave. She knows he's pissed off. But, she's trying to get her own way. So, she's trying to calm him down. But, as far as trying to manipulate somebody to stay, god damn, she's a good manipulator. She shifts the whole thing. It's fine, you don't want to talk with me, but hey, let's talk about your little journey, given by the god of this world. What if your wonderful interview with Surtur and all the undone things which you set out to do? Because he's like, well, I'm just gonna go away. Wherever you aren't is better than anything right now. And she's like, well, come on. What about all this stuff that you were supposed to do? The little back and forth about, well, I won't speak to you about it. And then she's like, what? Do you only speak to this to like the people who are already like, along your line of thinking? Well, how's that going to work out? How are you supposed to change the world if you don't talk to the very people who are against you? The Crystalman thing, it's still not clear. Maskell has a notion that only because of Craig, it's not only because of Craig. The face itself is just off-putting. It's a hideous grimace. So not only because of what Craig's own implications, because Craig didn't really say anything that, Crystalman's like evil or anything, but all those things he talked about regarding that all had negative connotations, along with the face. I find like her response about why everything all dead people have that face. They're all daughters and sons of Crystalman. Doubtless the family resemblance. It's such an obvious answer. Just kind of funny to me. Sometimes the simplest answer is the best. I don't quite understand what makes him question the Surtur-Crystalman connection. He says, then how could it have been Surtur whom I saw? That apparition was something quite different. Oh, wait. No, I do know why he's questioning it. The Surtur he saw did not have the Crystalman face. And if Crystalman supposedly looks like that, that's why he's like, wait, then how could these be the same? Again, to the manipulation, she's really good. You see, we have to talk, sit down beside me, ask me your questions. I'm not excessively smart, but I'll try to be of assistance. I would say otherwise. She is one of the most intelligent. Actually, all the women in this story are like the most intelligent of all the people he encounters. Maskell permitted himself to be dragged down with soft violence. She bent toward him as if confidentially and contrived that her sweet, cool, feminine breath should fan his cheek. He's letting himself be. It's not seduced because I don't know if the word fits. I don't know. Is seduction just merely for sexual things? Or is it just a general, manipulative thing?
Yeah, it's just general, but it's mostly used sexually now.
Yeah. Well, the soft violence thing, she still has a will of her own. The Sorb thing works. So she's doing... Part of that is part of why he's, he's come under her spell, basically. Quite literally. Let's see. Are you only instructing the initiated? He answers, who am I to instruct anybody? However, you're quite right. I wish to do what I can, not because I am qualified, but because I am here. This is actually a fun little thing that you find, across the history of people who found religions. A good number of them are founded by people who are, nobodies. Now, whether that's good or bad, kind of is all over the place. because there's plenty of things which are started by people who are very knowledgeable, people who are in some way or other gifted with a life that allows them to have connections to people who know the mysteries, and then join in on those mysteries. But then you have people like for example, Muhammad. Not a very remarkable person. But they're sent out. The 12 apostles, for example, a lot of them were not remarkable people at all. They were just normal. But were they qualified anywhere? Were they exceptionally moral people before Jesus chose them? No, not really. And yet, they were the ones who are given the message and to go spread it, and not because they were qualified, or in fact, one could actually think that the fact of normality is what qualifies you in those senses. Who else would people be willing to listen to other than somebody who used to be just a normal slob like them, and rectified their ways and found something greater and is now bringing back that message. If you're, and then again, Maskell has some connection to Prometheus. He shares in the spirit of Prometheus. So he's here. We can already know from that there's some structure of what he's doing. That he's here to metaphorically steal the fire of the gods and bring it back to mankind, to get some knowledge, get something of the divine, and bring it back with him. Even though he's been told that that's not happening for him, of all people. He's not going to return. He's supposed to die on this world. See, he's a giant. You're a giant, both in body and soul. What you want to do, you can do. What's that saying? Behind every man, there's a great woman. Every great man, there's a great woman.
Yeah. I thought you were going to quote Blades of Fury. Or Blades of Glory, sorry. If you can dream it, you can do it.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, if somebody speaks to you like that, that sounds like waifu material. Not gonna lie. So anyways, continue. Where were we? Oh yes, he sees off pain and he cools down. She says, "Won't you stay?" she asked all of a sudden, quite openly and frankly. "Yes, I think I'll stay," he replied slowly. "And another thing, O'Shex. If I've misjudged your character, pray forgive me. I'm a hasty, passionate man. There are enough easygoing men. Hard knocks are a good medicine for vicious hearts, and you didn't misjudge my character as far as you went. Only, every woman has more than one character. Don't you know that?" During the pause that followed, a snapping of twigs was heard, and both looked around, startled. They saw a woman stepping slowly across the neck that separated them from the mainland. "Tight omen," muttered O'Shex in a vexed, frightened voice. She immediately moved away from Maskell and stood up. The newcomer was of middle height, very slight and graceful. She was no longer quite young. Her face wore the composure of a woman who knows her way about the world. It was intensely pale, and under its quiescence there was just a glimpse of something strange and dangerous. It was curiously alluring, though not exactly beautiful. Her hair was clustering and boyish, reaching only to the neck. It was of a strange indigo color. She was quaintly attired in a tunic and breeches, pieced together from the square blue-green plates of some reptile. Her small ivory-white breasts were exposed. Her sorb was black and sad, rather contemplative. Without once glancing up at Oshek and Maskell, she quietly glided straight toward Crib Typhon's corpse. When she arrived within a few feet of it, she stopped and looked down with arms folded. Oshek drew Maskell a little away and whispered, "It's Crib Typhon's other wife, who lives under Discorn. She's a most dangerous woman. Be careful what you say. If she asks you to do anything, refuse it outright." "The poor soul looks harmless enough." "Yes, she does. But the poor soul is quite capable of swallowing up Crag himself. Now, play the man." The murmur of their voices seemed to attract Tide Omen's notice, for she now slowly turned her eyes toward them. All right, let's just commenting. Tide Omen, Tide and Omen. And once you see what she can do, she is quite a Tide.
Yeah. And Domin, not domination.
Tide Omen. Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. And she's definitely like the most dominant
yeah.
In this place.
That's why I called her Tide Domin when I was reading. I didn't even think Tide Omen.
No, because I think like a part of what she does, like she's also she knows how to read omens.
Yeah.
But anyways, like let's see, compared to Osha, she's middle height, very slight and graceful. No longer quite young. Her face was composure. When I think of her face, I think of what's. Did you ever see Yu Yu Hakusho?
Of course.
You remember that, like the like old woman that like teaches him the spirit gun?
Yeah.
Like her face is what I think of when I think of her. What she looks like. Is it Genkai?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah, Genkai. That's kind of what I think her face looks like. Push a woman who knows her way about the world. It was intensely pale, and under its quiescence, there was just a glimpse of something strange and dangerous. So, very pale skin. It was curiously alluring, though not exactly beautiful. Fitting to her, she's the prime. She's not in the prime of her life, as opposed to somebody like what's her name, like Joywind, who is young and has the vibrance of life in her, as opposed to someone like Oshak's, who's still young, in the peak of her beauty. What is it? Oshak's like skin was like described as like multicolored and not an opalescent, but different colors, very vibrant, very much expressive of like full of life in a way. She's pale, so she's definitely not. And as we know from like the history of our own world, like and even now, there's a delicateness and beauty to like whiteness, but then there's like a limit to it where you get a bit too pale and it looks wrong.
Yeah.
See, her hair was clustering and boyish, reaching only to the neck. That's very fitting. She has a very despite being very feminine, she's a very masculine, more masculine than Oshak's for sure. She has a stronger will, which is why Oshak is scared of her. Indigo color. Seems to me, indigo is sadness. I mean, like it describes her third eye is rather sad looking. It's quite fitting. I mean, you think the indigo thing is also kind of connected to like the whole like psychic auras and things, like where
likely,
but
yeah. Yeah, the closer you are in terms of like further along the spectrum you are, the more advanced you are, I guess, in terms of hues of the aura. So indigo would be pretty strong. Purple is stronger.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So she was quaintly attired in a tunic and breeches, pieced together from the square blue-green plates of some reptile. So everybody else so far has wore furs, and she wears reptile scales. Breeches. So she's wearing some kind of pants, a mix between both a tunic and breeches. Yeah, breeches.
Breeches, we say it here in the South.
Blue-green plates of some reptile. That's fitting. Both her character and to Ifton. Small ivory white breasts were exposed. Well, part of that just goes along with she's out of her prime. Not that sexually attractive, but not that she needs to be. It's not like her main form of attraction now. They're exposed. Well, it's Ifton. Might, nature. Yeah, it fits. Her sword was black. Color black. You can guess what that means. So, right. She's Crim Typhon's other wife, who lives under Discorn, and Discorn is the tallest peak in Ifton. And I think obviously one part of this is like scorn. Hell hath no fury that like a woman scorned, and I think that was definitely done on purpose. But this, what's the dis part? Do you think?
Dis?
Yeah, like dis. Like what is this like the two parts? One of them is scorn for sure. The other one is like dissolved.
Yeah, dissolve, discord.
Discord. Yeah. Discord and
it's
scorn.
Just a prefix.
Yeah. Discord and scorn. That's what it is.
Means non, kind of.
Yeah, but I think that the thing is the mix between discord and scorn.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And again, she's pretty powerful, Maskel's like, well, she just looks like a harmless old lady. Well, she's not that old, but she's old. Oishax responds, yes, she does, but the poor soul is quite capable of swallowing up Crag himself. Remember, Crag is literally the devil in this world, so she's more scared than the devil. Or at least that's what Oishax
she's more scared of Tide Doman. Or Tide Omen.
Yeah. So, continuing. The murmur of their voices seemed to attract Tydomin's notice, for she now slowly turned her eyes toward them. Who killed him? She demanded. Her voice was so soft, low, and refined that Maskell hardly was able to catch the words. The sounds, however, lingered in his ears, and curiously enough seemed to grow stronger instead of fainter. Oishax whispered, Don't say a word, leave it all to me. Then she swung her body around to face Tydomin squarely and said aloud, I killed him. Tydomin's words by this time were ringing in Maskell's head like an actual physical sound. There was no question of being able to ignore them. He had to make an open confession of his act, whatever the consequences might be. Quietly taking Oishax by the shoulder, by the shoulder and putting her behind him, he said in a low but perfectly distinct voice, "It was I that killed Crim-Typhon." Oshax looked both haughty and frightened. "Maskell says that so as to shield me, as he thinks. I require no shield, Maskell. I killed him, Tydomin." "I believe you, Oshax. You did murder him, not with your own strength, for you brought this man along for the purpose." Maskell took a couple steps toward Tydomin. "It's of little consequence who killed him, for he's better dead than alive, in my opinion. Still, I did it. Oshax had no hand in the affair." Tydomin appeared not to hear him. She looked beyond him at Oshax musingly. "When you murdered him, didn't it occur to you that I would come here to find out?" "I never once thought of you," replied Oshax with an angry laugh. "Do you really imagine that I carry your image with me wherever I go?" "If someone were to murder your lover here, what would you do?" "Lying hypocrite," Oshax spat out. "You never were in love with Crim-Typhon. You always hated me, and now you think it an excellent opportunity to make it good. Now that Crim-Typhon's gone, for we both know he would have made a footstool of you if I had asked him. He worshipped me, but he laughed at you. He thought you ugly." Tydomin flashed a quick, gentle smile at Maskell. "Is it necessary for you to listen to all this?" Without question, and feeling it the right thing to do, he walked away out of earshot. Tydomin approached Oshax. "Perhaps my beauty fades, and I'm no longer young. I need him all the more." Oshax gave a kind of snarl. "Well, he's dead, and that's the end of it. What are you going to do now, Tydomin?" The other woman smiled faintly and rather pathetically. "There's nothing left to do, except mourn the dead. You won't grudge me that last office?" "Do you want to stay here?" demanded Oshax suspiciously. "Yes, Oshax dear, I wish to be alone." "Then what is to become of us?" "I thought that you and your lover, what is his name? Maskell. I thought that perhaps you two would go to Discord and split Broadsumber at my home." Oshax called out to Maskell. "Will you come with me now to Discord?" "If you wish," returned Maskell. "Go first, Oshax. I must question your friend about Crim-Typhon's death. I won't keep him." "Why don't you question me, rather?" demanded Oshax, looking up sharply. Tydomin gave the shadow of a smile. "We know each other too well." "Play no tricks," said Oshax, and she turned to go. "Surely you must be dreaming," said Tydomin. "That's the way, unless you want to walk over the cliffside." The path Oshax had chosen led across the isthmus. The direction which Tydomin proposed to her was over the edge of the precipice into empty space. "Shaping! I must be mad!" cried Oshax with a laugh, and she obediently followed the other's finger. She walked straight on toward the edge of the abyss. 20 paces away, Maskell pulled his beard round and wondered what she was doing. Tydomin remained standing with outstretched finger, watching her. Without hesitation, without slackening her step once, Oshax strolled on, and when she had reached the extreme end of the land, she still took one more step. Maskell saw her limbs wrench as she stumbled over the edge. Her body disappeared, and as it did so, an awful shriek sounded. Disillusionment had come to her an instant too late. He tore himself out of his stupor, rushed to the edge of the cliff, threw himself on the ground recklessly, and looked over. Oshax had vanished. He continued staring wildly down for several minutes, and then began to sob. Tydomin came up to him, and he got to his feet. The blood kept rushing to his face and leaving it again. It was some time before he could speak at all. Then he brought out the words with difficulty. "You shall pay for this, Tydomin. But first I want to hear why you did it." "Hadn't I cause?" she asked, standing with downcast eyes. "Was it pure fiendishness?" "It was for Crim Typhon's sake. She had nothing to do with that death. I told you so. You are loyal to her, and I'm loyal to him." "Loyal? You've made a terrible blunder. She wasn't my mistress. I killed Crim Typhon for quite another reason. She had absolutely no part in it." "Wasn't she your lover?" asked Tydaman slowly. "You've made a terrible mistake," repeated Maskell. "I killed him because he was a wild beast. She was as innocent of his death as you are." Tydaman's face took on a hard look. "So you are guilty of 2 deaths." There was a dreadful silence. "Why couldn't you believe me?" asked Maskell, who was pale and sweating painfully. "Who gave you the right to kill him?" demanded Tydaman sternly. He said nothing, and perhaps did not hear her question. She sighed 2 or 3 times and began to stir restlessly. "Since you murdered him, you must help me bury him." "What's to be done? This is a most fearful crime." "You are a most fearful man. Why did you come here to do all this? What are we to you?" "Unfortunately, you are right." Another pause ensued. "It's no use standing here," said Tydaman. "Nothing can be done. You must come with me." "Come with you? Where to?" "To Discorn. There's a burning lake on the far side of it. He always wished to be cast there after death. We can do that after Bloodsamber. In the meantime, we must take him home." "You're a callous, heartless woman. Why should he be buried when that poor girl must remain unburied?" "You know that's out of the question," replied Tydaman quietly. Maskell's eyes roamed about agitatedly, apparently seeing nothing. "We must do something," she continued. "I shall go. You can't wish to stay here alone." "No, I couldn't stay here. And why should I want to? You want me to carry the corpse." "He can't carry himself, and you murdered him. Perhaps it will ease your mind to carry it." "Ease my mind," said Maskell, rather stupidly. "There's only one relief for remorse, and that's voluntary pain." "And have you no remorse?" he asked, fixing her with a heavy eye. "These crimes are yours, Maskell," she said in a low but incisive voice. They walked over to Crim Typhon's body, and Maskell hoisted it on his shoulders. It weighed heavier than he had thought. Tydaman did not offer to assist him to adjust the ghastly burden. So you can tell, she's taking over his will. He's suddenly cool with somebody who's clearly crazy in a murderous way, cold-blooded. And she's like, "Well, you wouldn't want to be here alone, would you?" And he's like, "Nah, not really. Let me go along with you. You just murdered this other person." And the fact that he feels sad for Oshex, despite that it is Oshex who got him to murder somebody else, by taking over his will momentarily, or rather fueling his will and just pushing him over the edge, is also crazy. So yeah. I mean, the whole thing that she's blaming him for her killing Oshex is just complete nonsense. She could have heard it out, but she didn't intend to hear it out. Apparently, they had beef long before this, so she used it as an excuse. And as far as Crim Typhon goes, it's not that it seems that she cared about Crim Typhon. As a person, she cared for him as a tool of insurance for old age. You know. Although, given her power, I don't know why she would need that kind of insurance. So, continuing. She crossed the isthmus, followed by Maskell. Their path lay through sunshine and shadow. Branchspell was blazing in a cloudless sky. The heat was insufferable. Streams of sweat coursed down his face, and the corpse seemed to grow heavier and heavier. Tydaman always walked in front of him. His eyes were fastened in an unseeing stare on her white, womanish calves. He looked neither to right nor left. His features grew sullen, and at the end of 10 minutes he suddenly allowed his burden to slip off his shoulders onto the ground, where it lay sprawled every which way. He called out to Tydaman. She quickly looked around. "Come here. It has just occurred to me," he laughed. "Why should I be carrying this corpse? And why should I be following you at all? What surprises me is why this has never struck me before." She at once came back to him. "I suppose you're tired, Maskell. Let us sit down. Perhaps you have come a long way this morning." "Oh, it's not tiredness, but a sudden gleam of sense. Do you know of any reason why I should be acting as your porter?" He laughed again, but nevertheless sat down on the ground beside her. Tydaman neither looked at him nor answered. Her head was half bent so as to face the northern sky, where the Alpine light was still glowing. Maskell followed her gaze and also watched the glow for a moment or two in silence. "Why don't you speak?" he asked at last. "What does that light suggest to you, Maskell?" "I'm not speaking of that light." "Doesn't it suggest anything at all?" "Perhaps it doesn't. What does it matter?" "Not sacrifice?" Maskell grew sullen again. "Sacrifice of what? What do you mean?" "Hasn't it entered your head yet," said Tydaman, looking straight in front of her and speaking in her delicate, hard manner, "that this adventure of yours will scarcely come to an end until you have made some sort of sacrifice?" He returned no answer, and she said nothing more. In a few minutes' time, Maskell got up of his own accord, and irreverently and almost angrily threw Crim Typhon's corpse over his shoulder again. "How far do we have to go?" he asked in a surly tone. "An hour's walk." "Lead on." "Still, this isn't the sacrifice I mean," said Tydaman quietly, as she went on in front. Almost immediately they reached more difficult ground. They had to pass from peak to peak, as if from island to island. In some cases they were able to stride or jump across, but in others they had to make use of rude bridges of fallen timber. It appeared to be a frequented path. Underneath were the black and impenetrable abysses. On the surface were the glaring sunshine, the gay painted rocks, the chaotic tangle of strange plants. There were countless reptiles and insects. The latter were thicker built than those of earth, consequently still more disgusting, and some of them were of enormous size. One monstrous insect, as large as a horse, stood right in the center of their path without budging. It was armor-plated, had jaws like scimitars, and underneath its body was a forest of legs. Tydaman gave one malignant look at it and sent it crashing into the gulf. "What have I to offer except my life?" Maskell suddenly broke out. "And what good is that? It won't bring that poor girl back into the world." "Sacrifice is not for utility. It's a penalty which we pay." "I know that. The point is whether you can go on enjoying life after what's happened." She waited for Maskell to come even with her. "Perhaps you imagine I'm not man enough. You imagine that because I allowed poor Oshax to die for me." "She did die for you," said Tydaman in a quiet, emphatic voice. That would be a second blunder of yours, returned Maskell just as firmly. I was not in love with Oshiax, and I'm not in love with life. Your life is not required. Then I don't understand what you want, or what you are speaking about. It is not for me to ask a sacrifice from you, Maskell. That would be compliance on your part, but not sacrifice. You must wait until you feel there's nothing else for you to do. It's all very mysterious. The conversation was abruptly cut short by a prolonged and frightful crashing, roaring sound coming from a short distance ahead. It was accompanied by a violent oscillation of the ground on which they stood. They looked up, startled, just in time to witness the final disappearance of a huge mass of forest land not 200 yards in front of them. Several acres of trees, plants, rocks, and soil, with all its teeming animal life, vanished before their eyes like a magic story. The new chasm was cut as if by a knife. Beyond its farther edge, the all-pale glow burned blue just over the horizon. Now we shall have to make a detour, said Taidaman, halting. Maskell caught hold of her with his third arm. Listen to me. While I try to describe what I'm feeling, when I saw that land slip, everything I have heard about the last destruction of the world came into my mind. It seemed to me as if I were actually witnessing it, and that the world were really falling to pieces. Then, where the land was, we now have this empty, awful gulf. That's to say, nothing. And it seems to me as if our life will come to the same condition. Where there was something, there will be nothing. But that terrible blue glare on the opposite side is exactly like the eye of fate. It accuses us and demands what we have made of our life, which is no more. At the same time, it is grand and joyful. The joy consists in this, that it is in our power to give freely what will later on be taken from us by force. Taidaman watched him attentively. Then your feeling is that your life is worthless, and you make a present of it to the first one who asks? No, it goes beyond that. I feel that the only thing worth living for is to be so magnanimous that fate itself will be astonished at us. Understand me. It isn't cynicism or bitterness or despair, but heroism. It's hard to explain. Now you shall hear what sacrifice I offer you, Maskell. It's a heavy one, but that's what you seem to wish. That is so. In my present mood, it can't be too heavy. Then, if you are in earnest, resign your body to me. Now that Crim Typhon's dead, I'm tired of being a woman. I fail to comprehend. Listen, then. I wish to start a new existence in your body. I wish to be a male. I see it isn't worthwhile being a woman. I mean to dedicate my own body to Crim Typhon. I shall tie his body and mine together and give them a common funeral in the burning lake. That's the sacrifice I offer you. As I said, it's a hard one. So you do ask me to die, though how you can make use of my body is difficult to understand. No, I don't ask you to die. You will go on living. How is it possible without a body? Taidaman gazed at him earnestly. There are many such beings, even in your world. There you call them spirits, apparitions, phantoms. They are, in reality, living wills deprived of material bodies, always longing to act and enjoy, but quite unable to do so. Are you noble-minded enough to accept such a fate, do you think? If it's possible, I accept it, replied Maskell quietly. Not in spite of its heaviness, but because of it. But how is it possible? Undoubtedly there are many things possible in our world of which you have no conception. Now let us wait till we get home. I don't hold you to your word, for unless it's a free sacrifice, I will have nothing to do with it. I'm not a man who speaks lightly. If you can perform this miracle, you have my consent, once for all." "Then we'll leave it like that for the present," said Idaman sadly. So, what he just thought up is utterly insane. I mean, she has him under his thumb again.
Yeah.
But the thing he thought up, let's go over that again. He says, "Listen to me while I try to describe what I'm feeling." He looks at Alpane. So she's got him under her will. He looks at Alpane, and then like that gives him a further idea, like upon the thing that she's basically incepted into his mind. "When I saw that landslip, everything I have heard about the last destruction of the world came into my mind. It seemed to me as if I were actually witnessing it and that the world were really falling to pieces. Then, where the land was, we now have this empty, awful gulf, that is to say, nothing. And it seems to me as if our life will come to the same condition. Where there was something, there will be nothing. But that terrible blue glare on the opposite side is exactly like the eye of fate. It accuses us. It demands that we have made of what we have made of our life, which is no more. At the same time, it is grand and joyful. The joy consists in this, that it is in our power to give freely what will later on be taken from us by force." And he says, it's, "I feel that the only thing worth living for is to be so magnanimous that fate itself will be astonished at us. Not out of cynicism, bitterness, or despair, but heroism. It's hard to explain." So, I mean, in the first part, it's just the acknowledgement. Everything seems to, as far as we know, go towards becoming nothing. Where there was something, there will be nothing. And then, like, he introduces the Alpane thing. That terrible blue glare on the opposite side is exactly like the eye of fate. It accuses us and demands what we have made of our life, which is no more. I'm not sure why he would think this. I mean, unless you have a certain view of God, but even then, just the idea of fate alone isn't really accusative. I mean, fate is just fate. It's like everything's, if you believe everything's trending towards nothing, well, that's just where it's all going to go no matter what you do. No matter how much you don't want it to be the case, that's just going to be the case. It demands that what we have made of our life, which is no more. At the same time, it is grand and joyful. The joy consists in this, that it is in our power to give freely what will later on be taken from us by force. And this is something that it's not too unknown. I mean, I think it's actually like made to the point where it's probably like part of like a lot of self-help stuff implicitly, and it's actually not a very rare idea in a lot of spiritual stuff. Like there is something that we think that is greater in, doing yourself what you know somebody else will do to you inevitably, particularly with death. It's like, particularly in, even today, but more so like in older times, medieval times, like where the idea of honor was bigger. The whole idea of like ritual suicide, like don't wait for like the enemy to get to you. Might as well just kill yourself. They're going to kill you anyways. Might as well, do the honorable thing. Die with honor by following these like rituals in which, you by your own hand are the decider of how and when you go, as opposed to somebody else forcing it upon you. And this actually goes along with, the whole Ifton thematic of willpower. A place where like will is everything. If you know somebody else is going to do you in and there's nothing you can do about it, you would probably just choose to just do yourself in. Why the hell not? at least in one of those, you could say, well, at least it was my will and not the will of another. Despite the fact that it ends in the exact same thing. But there is a distinction, and there's a distinction between, you being the one to choose it, that despite the fact that you're literally destroying yourself, you have affirmed your highest existence by doing so, if you take your highest existence to be your will. This thing, the only thing worth living for is to be so magnanimous that fate itself will be astonished at us. Kind of seems like a typical romantic existentialist take. Heroism, it's kind of Nietzschean, if you want to call it that. It's not that Nietzsche invented this thought at all. Not much else to say about that. For the sacrifice that she offers him, she wants to basically do a soul transfer. She'll transfer her soul into his body, and his soul will be left with no body. He'll be a disembodied spirit, forever desiring but unable to satisfy anything because all the satisfactions belong to the body, apparently. So they proceeded on their way. Owing to the subsidence, Taidaman seemed rather doubtful at first as to the right road, but by making a long divergence, they eventually got around to the other side of the newly formed chasm. A little later on, in a narrow copse crowding a miniature insulated peak, they fell in with a man. He was resting himself against a tree and looked tired, overheated, and despondent. He was young. His beardless expression bore an expression of unusual sincerity, and in other respects he seemed a hardy, hard-working youth of an intellectual type. His hair was thick, short, and flaxen. He possessed neither a sword nor a third arm, so presumably he was not a native of Ifton. His forehead, however, was disfigured by what looked like a haphazard assortment of eyes, 8 in number, of different sizes and shapes. They went in pairs, and whenever two were in use, it was indicated by a peculiar shining. The rest remained dull until their turn came. In addition to the upper eyes, he had the 2 lower ones, but they were vacant and lifeless. His extraordinary battery of eyes, alternatively alive and dead, gave the young man an appearance of almost alarming mental activity. He was wearing nothing but a sort of skin kilt. Maskell seemed somehow to recognize the face, though he had certainly never set eyes on it before. Taidaman suggested to him to set down the corpse, and both sat down to rest in the shade. "Question him, Maskell," she said, rather carelessly, jerking her head toward the stranger. Maskell sighed and asked aloud from his seat on the ground, "What's your name, and where do you come from?" The man studied him for a few moments, first with one pair of eyes, then with another, then with a third. He next turned his attention to Taidaman, who occupied him with a still longer time. He replied at last, in a dry, manly, nervous voice, "I am Digrung. I have arrived here from Matterplay." His colors kept changing, and Maskell suddenly realized of whom he reminded him. It was Joywind. "Perhaps you're going to Pullingdred, Digrung?" he inquired, interested. "As a matter of fact, I am, if I can find my way out of this accursed country." "Possibly you're acquainted with Joywind there?" "She's my sister. I'm on my way to see her now. Why, do you know her?" "I met her yesterday." "What is your name, then?" "Maskell." "I shall tell her I met you. This will be our first meeting for 4 years. Is she well and happy?" "Both, as far as I could judge. You know Panau?" Her husband? Yes. But where do you come from? I've seen nothing like you before. From another world. Where is Matterplay? It's the first country one comes to beyond the sinking sea. What is it like there? How do you amuse yourselves? The same old murders and sudden deaths? Are you ill? Asked Digrung. Who is this woman? Why are you following at her heels like a slave? She looks insane to me. What's that corpse? Why are you dragging it around the country with you? Taidaman smiled. I've already heard it said about Matterplay that if one sows an answer there, a rich crop of questions immediately springs up. But why do you make this unprovoked attack on me, Digrung? I don't attack you, woman, but I know you. I see into you, and I see insanity. That wouldn't matter, but I don't like to see a man of intelligence like Maskell caught in your filthy meshes. I suppose even you clever Matterplay people sometimes misjudge character. However, I don't mind. Your opinion's nothing to me, Digrung. You'd better answer quiz questions, Maskell. Not for his own sake. But your feminine friend is sure to be curious about your having been seen carrying a dead man. Maskell's underlip shot out. Tell your sister nothing, Digrung. Don't mention my name at all. I don't want her to know about this meeting of ours. Why not? I don't wish it. Isn't that enough? Digrung looked impassive. Thoughts and words, he said, which don't correspond with real events of the world are considered most shameful in Matterplay. I'm not asking you to lie only to keep silent. To hide the truth is a special branch of lying. I can't accede to your wish. I must tell Joywind everything, as far as I know it. Maskell got up, and Taidaman followed his example. She touched Digrung on the arm and gave him a strange look. The dead man is my husband, and Maskell murdered him. Now you'll understand why he wishes you to hold your tongue. I guess there was some foul play, said Digrung. It doesn't matter. I can't falsify facts. Joywind must know. You refuse to consider her feelings, said Maskell, turning pale. Feelings which flourish on illusions and sicken and die on realities aren't worth considering, but Joywinds are not of that kind. If you decline to do what I ask, at least return home without seeing her. Your sister will get very little pleasure of the meeting when she hears your news. What are these strange relations between you? Demanded Digrung, eyeing him with suddenly aroused suspicion. Maskell stared back in a sort of bewilderment. Good God, you don't doubt your own sister, that pure angel? Taidaman caught hold of him delicately. I don't know Joywind, but whoever she is, and whatever she's like, I know this. She's more fortunate in her friend than in her brother. Now, if you really value her happiness, Maskell, you will have to take some firm step or other. I mean to. Digrung, I shall stop your journey. If you intend a second murder, no doubt you are big enough. Maskell turned around to Taidaman and laughed. I seem to be leaving a wake of corpses behind me on this journey. Why a corpse? There's no need to kill him. Thanks for that, said Digrung dryly. All the same, some crime is about to burst. I feel it. What must I do, then? Asked Maskell. It's not my business, and to tell the truth, I am not very interested. If I were in your place, Maskell, I would not hesitate long. Don't you understand how to absorb these creatures who set their feeble, obstinate wills against yours? That is a worse crime, said Maskell. Who knows? He will live, but he will tell no tales. Digrung laughed, but changed color. I was right, then. The monster has sprung into the light of day. Maskell laid a hand on his shoulder. You have the choice, and we are not joking. Do as I ask. You have fallen low, Maskell, but you are walking in a dream, and I can't talk to you. As for you, woman, sin must be like a pleasant bath to you. There are strange ties between Maskell and myself. But you are a passerby, a foreigner. I care nothing for you. Nevertheless, I shall not be frightened out of my plans, which are legitimate and right. Do as you please, said Tydaman. If you come to grief, your thoughts will hardly have corresponded with the real events of the world, which is what you boast about. It's no affair of mine. I shall go on, and not back, exclaimed Digrung with angry emphasis. Tydaman threw a swift, evil smile at Maskell. Bear witness that I have tried to persuade this young man. Now you must come to a quick decision in your own mind as to which is of the greatest importance, Digrung's happiness or Joywind's. Digrung won't allow you to preserve them both. It won't take me long to decide, Digrung. I give you a last chance to change your mind. As long as it's in my power, I shall go on and warn my sister against her criminal friends. Maskell again clutched at him, but this time with violence. Instructed in his actions by some new and horrible instinct, he pressed the young man tightly to his body with all three arms. A feeling of wild, sweet delight immediately passed through him. Then for the first time he comprehended the triumphant joys of absorbing. It satisfied the hunger of the will exactly as food satisfies the hunger of the body. Digrung proved feeble. He made little opposition. His personality passed slowly and evenly into Maskell's. The latter became strong and gorged. The victim gradually became paler and limper until Maskell held the corpse in his hand. He dropped the body and stood trembling. He had committed his second crime. He felt no immediate difference in his soul. But Tydaman shed a sad smile on him, like winter sunshine. He half expected her to speak, but she said nothing. Instead, she made a sign to him to pick up Crim Typhon's corpse. As he obeyed, he wondered why Digrung's dead face did not wear the frightful crystalman mask. Why hasn't he altered? He muttered to himself. Tydaman heard him. She kicked Digrung lightly with her little foot. He isn't dead, that's why. The expression you mean is waiting for your death. Then is that my real character? She laughed softly. You came here to carve a strange world, and now it appears you are carved yourself. Oh, there's no doubt about it, Maskell. You needn't stand there gaping. You belong to shaping like the rest of us. You are not a king or a god. Since when have I belonged to him? What does that matter? Perhaps since you first breathed the air of torments, or perhaps since 5 minutes ago. Without waiting for his response, she set off through the copse and strode on to the next island. Maskell followed, physically distressed and looking very grave. So just only one thing to comment there, really. A feeling of wild, sweet delight immediately passed through him. Then, for the first time, he comprehended the triumphant joys of absorbing. It satisfied the hunger of the will exactly as food satisfies the hunger of the body. A very extreme form of basically what we normally just call dominating your opponent. In any which way by which they have to bow down and admit that they have succumbed to you. And we can't pretend that that's not a normal thing that happens. It happens quite a lot. I'm not going to pretend that I don't engage in it. If you've seen the videos of me on Discord with, particularly the ones on quote-unquote debates, I'm not some tame soul who does not take some amount of delight in showing the other person that they're stupid, even when they refuse. Even when you're doing that One, it's a, kind of showboating to yourself. Like it's, you can't pretend that, one does not enjoy confirming to oneself that something is so. One can't pretend that one doesn't enjoy confirming through others, their acceptance of one's standpoint and, cheering you on or whatever. Also, feeds into your ego, satisfies the hunger of the will in this case. And then the ultimate satisfaction is for your enemy themselves to admit defeat. So let's see. Maskell followed, physically distressed and looking very grave. The journey continued for half an hour longer without incident. The character of the scenery slowly changed. The mountain tops became loftier and more widely separated from one another. The gaps were filled with rolling white clouds which bathed the shores of the peaks like a mysterious sea. To pass from island to island was hard work. The intervening spaces were so wide. Taidaman, however, knew the way. The intense light, the violet blue sky, the patches of vivid landscape emerging from the white vapor ocean made a profound impression on Maskell's mind. The glow of Alpine was hidden by the huge mass of Discorn, which loomed up straight in front of them. The green snow on the top of the gigantic pyramid had by now completely melted away. The black, gold, and crimson of its mighty cliffs stood out with terrific brilliance. They were directly beneath the bulk of the mountain, which was not a mile away. It did not appear dangerous to climb, but he was unaware on which side of it their destination lay. It was split from top to bottom by numerous straight fissures. A few pale green waterfalls descended here and there like narrow, motionless threads. The face of the mountain was rugged and bare. It was strewn with detached boulders and great, jagged rocks projected everywhere like iron teeth. Taidaman pointed to a small black hole near the base, which might be a cave. "That is where I live." "You live here alone?" "Yes." "It's an odd choice for a woman." "And you are not unbeautiful either." "A woman's life is over at 25, she replied, sighing. "And I am far older than that. 10 years ago it would have been I who lived yonder, and not Oshiak's. Then all this wouldn't have happened." Okay, now let me see how much is left of this chapter. Oh, not
much.
long. Yeah. So she's 25. I am far older than that. 10 years ago it would have been I who lived yonder, not Oshiak's. So I assume she's at least 35. Mid-30s, which definitely, that's not old. But I mean, this goes along the whole, idea that people have, even today. Though I don't know, like, I don't really experience, my own experience is that this isn't generally really believed to be true. Except for the circles of people who talk about it. I mean, like, it's true in the sense that, beyond your 30s, good luck getting, having an easy time with finding a partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, let alone getting married. In the past, yeah, sure, I think that was the case mainly because, the whole arranged marriage kind of thing, and if you were gonna get a wife or a husband, you're gonna get somebody younger. Well, with the husband, the men's age is not an issue, but with the women it is, because men are generally superficial about that, especially back then when you didn't get to know much about the woman, and it's not like the women had much character because they didn't get education. Uh, so, I mean, the surface level was pretty much all that was paid attention to. Nowadays, I think that's not really as much a case. Are people still superficial? Yes, but superficiality goes far beyond that. And like the fact that, after 25, supposedly, or nowadays, like they push it back to, like, to 30. Like 30 is like the limit. After 30, you're like supposedly no good, or you've hit the wall, so called. It's. But it seems to me that the main issues with those is just that, our society is not geared for people being able to find people that you can actually get along with very well, both in person and online. And there's like work-life balance, and we don't have a society with a good work-life balance. So people don't really have much time to meet other people, really. So after your 30s, you're kind of screwed in many ways. But that's just a tangent, disconnected from their world. So, let's see. A quarter of an hour later, they stood within the mouth of the cave. It was 10 feet high, and its interior was impenetrably black. Put down the body in the entrance, out of the sun, directed Tydoman. He did so. She cast a keenly scrutinizing glance at him. Does your resolution still hold, Maskell? Why shouldn't it hold? My brains are not feathers. Follow me, then. They both stepped into the cave. At that very moment, a sickening crash, like heavy thunder just over their heads, set Maskell's weakened heart thumping violently. An avalanche of boulders, stones, and dust swept past the cave entrance from above. If their going in had been delayed by a single minute, they would have been killed. Tydoman did not even look up. She took his hand in hers and started walking with him into the darkness. The temperature became as cold as ice. At the first bend, the light from the outer world disappeared, leaving them in the absolute blackness. Maskell kept stumbling over the uneven ground, but she kept tight hold of him and hurried him along. The tunnel seemed of interminable length. Presently, however, the atmosphere changed, or such was his impression. He was somehow led to imagine that they had come to a larger chamber. Here Tydoman stopped and then forced him down with quiet pressure. His groping hand encountered stone, and by feeling it all over, he discovered it was a sort of stone slab, or couch, raised a foot or 18 inches from the ground. She told him to lie down. Has the time come? Asked Maskell. Yes. He lay there waiting in the darkness, ignorant of what was going to happen. He felt her hand clasping his. Without perceiving any gradation, he lost all consciousness of his body. He was no longer able to feel his limbs or internal organs. His mind remained active and alert. Nothing particular appeared to be taking place. Then the chamber began to grow light. Like very early morning, he could see nothing, but the retina of his eyes was affected. He fancied that he heard music, but while he was listening for it, it stopped. The light grew stronger, the air grew warmer. He heard the confused sound of distant voices. Suddenly, Tydoman gave his hand a powerful squeeze. He heard someone scream faintly, and then the light leaped up, and he saw everything clearly. He was lying on a wooden couch in a strangely decorated room, lighted by electricity. His hand was being squeezed, not by Tydoman, but by a man dressed in the garments of civilization, with whose face he was certainly familiar, but under what circumstances he could not recall. Other people stood in the background. They, too, were vaguely known to him. He sat up and began to smile without any special reason, and then stood upright. Everybody seemed to be watching him with anxiety and emotion. He wondered why. Yet he felt that they were all acquaintances. Two in particular he knew, the man at the farther end of the room, who paced restlessly backward and forward, his face transfigured by stern, holy grandeur, and that other big, bearded man, who was himself. Yes, he was looking at his own double, but it was just as if a crime-riddled man of middle age were suddenly confronted with his own photograph of an earnest, idealistic youth. His other self spoke to him. He heard the sounds but did not comprehend the sense. Then the door was abruptly flung open, and a short, brutish-looking individual leaped in. He began to behave in an extraordinary manner to everyone around him, and after that came straight up to him. Maskell. He spoke some words, but they were incomprehensible. A terrible expression came over the newcomer's face, and he grasped his neck with a pair of hairy hands. Maskell felt his bones bending and breaking. Excruciating pains passed through all the nerves of his body, and he experienced a sense of impending death. He cried out and sank helplessly on the floor in a heap. The chamber and the company vanished. The light went out. Once more he found himself in the blackness of the cave. He was this time lying on the ground, but Tydomin was still with him, holding his hand. He was in horrible bodily agony, but this was only setting for the despairing anguish that filled his mind. Tydomin addressed him in tones of gentle reproach. Gentle reproach. "Why are you back so soon? I've not had time yet. You must return." He caught hold of her and pulled himself up to his feet. She gave a low scream, as though in pain. "What does this mean? What are you doing, Maskell?" "Crag," began Maskell, but the efforts to produce his words choked him, so that he was obliged to stop. "Crag? What of Crag? Tell me quickly what has happened. Free my arm." He gripped her arm tighter. "Yes, I've seen Crag. I'm awake." "Oh, you're awake." "Awake." "And you must die," said Maskell in an awful voice. "But why? What has happened?" "You must die, and I must kill you, because I am awake, and for no other reason, you blood-stained dancing mistress." Tydomin breathed hard for a little time. Then she seemed suddenly to regain her self-possession. "You won't offer me violence, surely, in this black cave?" "No, the sun shall look on, for it is not a murder, but rest assured, you must die. You must expiate your fearful crimes." "You have already said so, and I see you have the power. You have escaped me. It is very curious. Well then, Maskell, let us come outside. I am not afraid. But kill me courteously, for I have also been courteous to you. I make no other supplication." All right. That felt like quite a long chapter.
Yeah.
Anyways, for those who haven't figured it out, he took the standpoint of the spirit from the very first chapter in the seance. This is one of two weird plot twisters in the story. The second one is literally going to be at the very end. And the second one, people find more confusing. This one is just kind of, it's not confusing. It's kind of like, oh, well, that's a very interesting little paranormal time travel reversal mechanic. I think the meaningfulness that he was the spirit that was summoned is telling of how ultimately, like, truly personal this journey is. You know, that ultimately, who really brings Maskell to torments? What is the situation that sets him up? Well, he is the situation that sets himself up to be brought to this planet. And what is this planet ultimately? It has to do with his own essence, really. And, like I said, since this is a story about the journey of the soul, that's very fitting. The importance here of Crag, the importance that pain is what wakes him up, snaps him out of the spell of Taidaman, is important in that, yet again, it's been mentioned, and it'll keep being mentioned, that the Crag and pain against pleasure and Crystalman. And while Taidaman didn't dominate through pleasure, she dominated in a sort of calming, commanding force, which then, instilled this guilt onto Maskell. And actually, God, thinking on this is an even greater point. Guilt. Oh man, there's a certain thing that I've been thinking of too much about lately. With certain people who use guilt for power, and it is very, very, very powerful. Actually, like Oshex used just straight up willpower. So did Krim Typhon. But the most amazing willpower is the willpower in which you basically incept your own will behind the back of the person you want to control, where you get them to subdue themselves to you rather than you forcing them to be subdued. It's very underhanded, and it's much more powerful, which also goes along with the fact that Taidaman is a hell of a lot more powerful. And it's fitting why she's a lot more powerful. Now that I realize this, she guilts people.
Yeah.
That's her specialty. And that is indeed just a more nefarious and way more powerful form of subduing people's wills.
Yep.
Then, along with that, the whole thing of tide, I think, is actually just quite fitting too. People drown themselves in their own guilt when they don't have to. It is that powerful. But so what was I saying? Pain, pleasure. So yes, Taidaman's part of Crystalman's world, Crystalman's creation, shapings. It's already been stated many times that whatever this world is, it seems that pleasure is some kind of way that it particularly dominates. She takes pleasure to exercise the will, so does Maskell in absorbing as well as dominating other things. But it's pain particularly, and this is an extreme pain. I mean, one, it's an extreme sacrifice she's demanding, and so it takes an extreme measure of pain to snap you right out of it as well. So pain overcomes pleasure here. It snaps him out of the illusion. He steps back because of the pain, is clear-headed, realizes what's going on, and he says, okay, now he realizes, this woman is really evil, because she is.
Yep.
The first time I listened to this, I did not catch that. I actually felt sorry for her. But then I was listening on audiobook, and it's kind of hard to keep track of things entirely exactly, especially when I was listening to it, because I fell asleep on it many times.
You thought he just killed at any opposition.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, yeah, I thought he was just... I get that, she was manipulative, but I didn't understand how bad she was.
Yeah.
Because she seems like a nice person. I mean, she's quiet and all these other things, and she's very intelligent. The things that she says are kind of very intelligently underhanded to get him to acquiesce to this feeling of guilt. But he realizes she's bad, and she's like, well, we can't let you live. Gonna kill you. But he says it's not going to be a murder this time. No, this time I'm not doing it out of some personal like, agenda against you. I'm going to take the standpoint of the moral law here. You've committed a lot of crimes, and I'm going to be your executioner.
Mm-hmm. She tries a last-ditch effort. You can't kill me in the cave. Come on. This is underhanded. He's like, fine, I'll kill you outside.
Yeah. Good chapter. Anything else to say on that?
Not so much. You you gave away. Well, you didn't give it away. We got to the one of the twists.
Mm.
There's not a whole lot to say that you didn't say.
Yeah. As for like the cave discorn, I think the metaphor is just pretty clear. I don't think there's much of anything to say about that. Perhaps the only thing is, one could say, and it is later brought on in the book, particularly in a much later chapter, that Baskel just happens to be really lucky, and they've just like narrowly avoided like 2 disasters so far. Actually 3. The one with Oshex, or at least they did get partially hit with that one mountain coming up.
Yep.
Then the forest with Taidamen like 200 feet ahead, and then this one like they missed the rock slide by 1 minute. Oshex did say that somehow generally like the denizens of Ifdon managed to both the animals and the people somehow get a sense for like when things are about to go down, but they themselves aren't really exactly conscious of it. But somehow they do have to be aware, like of how things are going, to be able to dodge those things. Kind of wonder if like those things are connected to some will, perhaps not like the individual will of these people, but like a more broad, like worldly, natural, embodied will, let's say. Because it just happens to be that these events happen, and they seem to be very correlated with other events of will happening. Like there's the one with Oshex. Okay, they get hit with the mountain going up. The next big event is his rage overtakes him. It overcomes him. Like it wells up too strongly, and he pushed on by Oshex, and he kills Crim Typhon.
Yep.
Those analogically go well together, actually, quite well. Then there's the forest that falls down to nothing. They go around it. On the other side is Digrung. The emptiness of the physical emptiness is that void left by the forest. The whole idea of the sacrifice being a self-emptying, goes along with it. And the absorption of Digrung is both a self-emptying in the case that like he's completely overtaken by Taidamen at that point, who pushes him to do that. In which it's sacrifice, and this is just a funny thing. Like it's a sacrifice between like Joy wouldn't be disappointed in him, finding out that he murdered somebody, but he could have just told him the story. Although maybe he didn't realize it yet. Well, yeah, he definitely hasn't realized it yet. It takes a couple more chapters for him to have it dawn on him that he's been under a spell. So he couldn't tell him that Oshex is the one who kind of like really primed him to do that. He was overtaken, and it wasn't his own will. And then there's this, like the rock slide. those things hit you. It's worse than being hit by a tide, but it is a tide as well. Definitely takes you out. And here, the fact that they're in a cave subsumed under Discorn, tides take you under. And he's definitely be taken under the tide of Tide Omen. Yeah, quite fitting, I think. So, anyways, I guess that's all that there is for that chapter. This has been the longest chapter I think we've read. So, for those of you listening, hopefully you continue. Hopefully you find this interesting, and see you next chapter.